smile because now we have a new YouTube channel and all these recordings will be put in there. So smile, behave, and don't eat. So we are having with that Dr. Jerry Heason. He is going to do a presentation tonight. So welcome, Jerry.
Okay, let me see if I can get this straight this time. Let's see. Always go to slides. Oh no, this always does this. Why are we doing this? Sorry, talk amongst yourself again. Sorry.
Okay. Has anybody seen the YouTube channel that we have now?
No.
Okay, Charlos did and kind of reviewed the first posting there. It was pretty cool. So after listening, I said, okay, I gotta be careful with my eyes and all that when I speak. So, well, we are seeing your screen, Jerry.
Let's see if we got that. And how about that? Does that work?
It says, yeah, it is.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right, good. All right. So thank you, everyone, for being here, and welcome to our quote YouTube channel as we try to get this going. So I wanted to go through some of the basics for some of you that are new, just to get you up to speed, and then talk about probably the number one topic. If you had one thing that you could learn this year that would change everything for you. So welcome. This is our Lions Diabetes Camp program. Our programs are going on close to 3 years now, thanks to Lydia and the Lions Club International. And they have, this is their retreat center up in Wrightwood. So first off, can everybody give a thanks to Lydia Petro-Jones? Because without her, this wouldn't be going on. She just does an amazing job of keeping everything together.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lydia.
And then
Thank you, Lydia. Muchas gracias.
and then the Lions Club International is taking on the idea of diabetes, but diabetes is like marijuana. It's a gateway disease. I mean, all of the chronic diseases, heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, obesity, arthritis, are all due to not getting your nutrition right, and your lifestyle right. But it really is 80%, unfortunately, nutrition. And then I want to thank the Temecula Alliance for hosting this. They've done a great job with this, putting up with me. So those of you who don't know me, I'm a family and sports medicine doctor, and kind of got recruited. Okay, I got my arm twisted to help with this, and it's really been very good for my patients, but hopefully I can bring you along with it. And we did come out with a book, and Rolf has that book. Thank you very much for having that. And so this is a book we did last year that's called Nudge Away Diabetes. It comes as 3 forms. It does come as a Kindle, but a paperback, and then you can actually get it as an Audible. So all the money that goes to that goes to directly to the Lions Diabetes Camp. But if you could get that, it would really give you a good grounding in what we're going to be doing. So with that, let's ask you guys 3 questions. They're probably the most important questions in nutrition. And you possibly ask yourself this every day, like, what should I eat? What do you eat? It's when you eat, and then how much you eat. Those are the big 3. And so understand, getting to the 3 things, there's only 3 macronutrients, right? We all kind of know this. So there's carbohydrates, there's proteins, and there's fats. And so when you look at it, proteins themselves protein is not a building block. It's an energy. So it's not an energy source, it's a building block. So you can use protein in a pinch, but in general, our body uses it to build. And so we essentially have 2 sources of energy. And one of the things to look at is that when you look at the 3 macronutrients, 2 of them are right here. So these are what's called essential proteins and essential oils and fats. And if you don't get this into your diet, you will die. Those are essential. We can't make those. They make everything else out of this, but these are essential. And so the question is always, well, then what are the essential carbohydrates? And these are the essential carbohydrates. In my little, sort of dad joke, trying to say that there are no essential carbohydrates. So you don't have to eat carbohydrates because our body can make carbohydrates. And so while carbohydrates are a fuel, you would argue that they're a dirty fuel, that they're like coal. They are used for fuel, but they do a lot of damage, whereas oil and the healthy fats are really a clean burning type oil. So in short, you don't really need carbs, you do need protein and fats. And when you look at the food, it actually is quite good. It's very savory. So we sort of get, ideally, you to convert from a sweet tooth to a savory tooth. And if you wanted one cookbook, if you're new to this, highly recommend Marie Emmerich. And she was so nice to come out and sign some books for us and things. But it's keto comfort foods. And one of the most important foods, I think, for these days, especially if you have children or teenagers, is to learn how to make low carb pizza. So this is low carb pizza. It has very little carbs. The crust is made out of almond flour or coconut flour. And so the question then is, how do you think I cut my carbs? This is how I cut my carbs. Is anybody laughing? Does anyone find? I thought this was funny. It's a pizza cutter. So that's how you cut your food. So now, if you are going to eat carbs, especially if you're diabetic, what would be really good is to try to have carb consistency. So if you are going to eat carbs, try to be steady Eddie. If you can, try not to do this roller coaster kind of stuff. This is the thing that makes it very tough for your doctor to help you and stuff. So with that, hopefully this won't go bad. I'm going to show you in honor of Betty White, who passed away recently. She had what I would consider the #1 Super Bowl commercial. So let me see if I can get that. Let's see. So let me just stop and I'll share it again. Share here. Okay, can you see this at all?
It's starting.
Can anyone see it?
Yeah, it's a little
Yes.
blurry, but I can see it.
Okay, here we go.
Oh. I remember that.
Mike, what's your deal, man? Come on, man. You've been riding me all day. Mike, you're playing like Betty White out there. That's not what your girlfriend said.
Oh, baby. Eat a Snickers. Better?
You're not you when you're hungry.
So the reason I bring this up, and I'll stop sharing and go back to the fasting one, and then I'll start sharing, is that if you're gonna have carbs, you're just gonna be on a roller coaster. And so I really encourage you to consider getting, let's see, let's work, yeah. To realize that there are limits to carbohydrate intake, and that that's why they have these Snicker commercials, because you go really high and then you get really low. And it isn't necessarily the greatest thing for the body, but I just wanted to at least show that too. So now let's answer the question, when should you eat? So what I'm going to propose is that you at least ask yourself this question individually, and I'm going to give you a lot of options, which is the good thing. The bad thing is I'm going to give you a lot of options, so you have to decide what works for you, and maybe it isn't the same every day. So there is the F word called fasting. And a lot of people just equate that with starvation, but there's a big difference. Fasting is willingly done as opposed to starvation. There is a time limit. You can decide to break your fast whenever you want to. It definitely improves health. And starvation is actually quite dangerous, and it detoxifies and it brings you back and can readjust your hunger. So there are benefits to fasting. The #1 thing for this audience is lowering insulin, but it improves focus. I know a lot of you think I make my living off my good looks, but no, that's not true. And Dr. McDonald will attest to that. I make it for my brain, and really fasting helps your brain. I mean, think back on the opposite of how good were you thinking after, the big Thanksgiving meal? Is that the time to take the SAT? So you really want to look at all of the things that are helpful. So fasting does a ton of really, really good things. So it's good to at least learn about it. So some people also call it cleansing. They'll do juice cleanses or other kinds of cleanses. With true fasting, you're really not taking in any calories at all. you will be drinking in electrolyte type water, so salt water, but juice fasts in and of themselves aren't really considered fasting, but there's 1,001 different things. So now I want to kind of explain to you a little bit principle that people get it wrong, that they think if you fast, you're going to break down your muscles. So let's say you had a log cabin and it's heated only by a fireplace, and then you have a bunch of wood out in the back. So let's say you had a nice rip-roaring fire. When it's cold and it starts to then kind of smolder out, and you have to replenish the fuel to keep the fire going. If you're in a cabin, I don't think you're so foolish that you would start to break apart the furniture. So the body does not break apart the protein. It will just go out to the woodshed and get some wood. So think about your metal as fuel. So fat is our fuel. That's what it's there for. You need literally, at the end of the day, what I'd love you guys to do this year, and this is sort of my goal too, is learn to burn your body's extra fuel. Just learn to burn fat. And if you burn fat, you can build muscle. It works really well. So I'll be teaching you some of this, but that's the thought, is that you do not break down protein. Your body switches and just simply burns a different alternative and a better one. And then you just have a lot of it, so you can burn quite a bit of it. Now, the other thought is that we think there's just calories in and calories out, and it's just a straight shot. But really, if you think about it, it's a little bit similar to our situation where we have a refrigerator in our house, and you can kind of equate that to the liver. And then those of you that might be older, remember when we all had refrigerators out in the garage. Anybody had a freezer out in their garage?
We still have it.
Okay, or still have it, yeah. So that was the thought. Now, a freezer usually can hold more. A freezer isn't quite as accessible, but it's a really good thing to have. So let's say, for example, and I know no one here has ever done this, but let's say you go to Costco and you buy too much, okay? So when you go to Costco and you buy too much, then you got to do a partitioning. You put as much as you can in your refrigerator, in your liver, and then you put the rest in the freezer. And so then once the refrigerator starts to get low, what's the common thing to do is you would be sent out to the freezer and you get the food out of the freezer. So that's all well and good. But let's say, suppose in a sort of situation that there was what's called a freezer police. Let's say that you could put stuff into the freezer, but it won't let you take stuff out of the freezer, that there's a kind of a mean policeman that is the freezer police, and that is what's called insulin. So what happens is that when you eat too many carbs, you shut down fat burning because you can't get to the fat, because insulin is like the freezer police. And what increases your insulin is the carbohydrate. So high carbohydrates raise your blood insulin more than anything, and then you can't get to it. So literally, once your refrigerator's done, you're starving. You can't get to that big treasure trove of food in your freezer, and you essentially are starving. And so that's why overweight people literally get starving. They can't get to their food because they have this horrible hormone in excess. When it's low, it works well, but if it's high all the time, that's what insulin resistance is, then it causes you to be super hungry. And this is the reason they give you, bread when you go to a restaurant. Remember, we used to go to a restaurant. They want to make you hungry because they can stimulate insulin. If insulin stays high, you're always hungry, and you can't, because you can't get to your fat. So what you want to do is keep your insulin low. And how do you keep your insulin low? Basically, two things. You would want to lower the carbohydrates when you do eat, and then think about that F word, fasting, because if you fast, what happens then, you have a straight shot, that there's no police that's taking, that's not allowing you to get to the fat. So you can burn fat, preserve, or even build your muscle, and then you're not hungry. And interestingly, when you look at what the body does in terms of, and this is a little bit of a complicated slide, but the green is the fat and sort of red is carbohydrates or starch or sugar. And so if you fast, very quickly, this goes down. And so you basically run out of the sugar that's typically in your liver, in your refrigerator. And then you go to your freezer, otherwise known as your fat stores, and then you just run off of that. And you can do very, very well. So literally after essentially a day, most of us are just burning pure fat. Now, you can do that easily if you're already eating sort of more fat than carbs. You slide into it very well. If you're on a carb diet, it's frankly very, very painful to switch over to fat metabolism because it takes basically a couple of days. And this is what happens in the marathon. I've run 6 marathons, and at about the 20-mile mark, you hit what's called the wall because you run out of all your carbohydrates. And now you're trying to flip to fat metabolism, but you can't flip it that quickly. And so you're just sort of really, really frustrated. So it's important to learn to burn fat, but it doesn't flip on overnight. And so it's something that you'd want to look at. So the big deal with fasting, number one, is you don't break down protein. You'll actually just very seamlessly switch to fat metabolism. But what about your basal metabolic rate? I know that's a question that you have. Like,
I brought her with me.
if you lower your, if
You
you're
did.
fasting, then are you going to lower your metabolic rate? And people say, oh, I got to eat 6 small meals because I got to keep my metabolism up so I can get really, thin, which makes no sense. I'm going to keep eating so I can get thin. But because if I fast, my basal metabolic rate will go down. But it doesn't. If you look at the red, this is a 4-day fast, that actually when you fast, your metabolism goes up for 4 days. And this makes a lot of sense. Say you're a hunter back in the, Stone Age kind of thing. If you are a bad hunter, and Tim, they're not called vegetarians, stop that, Tim. But say you're a bad hunter and you can't get food, it does not make sense for us to lower our metabolism. What your body has sort of through evolution increased the metabolism so you can go out and get game. Now, after 4 days, they go, oh, you're a really bad hunter. And then they start to lower it. But it actually goes up for the first 4 days. Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to fast because I'll get too foggy. But once you get this, you actually improve your brain function. That intermittent and prolonged fasting supercharges your brain. And in fact, this goes back, millennia. Plato was the one that said, I fast for greater physical and mental efficiency. So fasting is very, very good. Frankly, that's why I fast during the day, to try to serve my patients better. But fasting really does give you some clarity, but it is a learned technique. Now, that being said, it's interesting that every major religion has fasting. So if fasting was bad, do you think all these religions want to take out all of their members? And like I'm Catholic Christian, so we have Lent. I've actually already started my Lent. And I sort of joke that, well, if Lent was so good, why don't we do it all the time? The Muslims have Ramadan, the Jewish folks have high holy days. So all the major religions do fasting to varying degrees. And I do like the idea that we should be doing fasting. And those of you that are Christian might know these 2 phrases. So in Luke, they talk about praying. So in the Bible, it says, when you pray. So the supposition is that you should pray. So when you pray, this is what you should do. It's not if you pray, you should do it. It's like when you pray. Well, the same with fasting is, he didn't say like, well, if you fast, don't be like the hypocrites. He said, when you fast. So we all hear about prayer and fasting in a lot of churches, but I do see a lot of prayer ministries. We are starting at several churches to do fasting ministry. So if any of you are in a church and are interested in sort of starting a fasting ministry, I'm very open to give presentations, because I do think that that's something that is a nice complement and amplifies all of the things that you're doing. And then the last medical thing that I really like is something called autophagy. So this is your word for the day, autophagia. You're eating yourself. But this is incredibly good for helping your body. And I use autophagy. The analogy I use is it's like taking a day off to clean out your garage. I know none of you have a messy garage like this, but when you do take time off, if you do fast, your body has a chance to clear out stuff. This is one of the best anti-cancer things to do. Thomas Seyfried, who's real big in this, really has talked about really that if you have cancer and you have the body fat to be able to do it, you should do like a cleansing water only fast for 7 days. So I really like the idea of learning about autophagy. The person who came up with that won the Nobel Prize in 2014. So that's another thing. So now let's get to the nitty gritty of actual fasting. So there's a ton of different kinds of fasting. Those of you, except for Dr. McDonald, that aren't eating are fasting, because it's just the flip side of the record. You're either eating or you're fasting. Right now, all of us are doing intermittent fasting because you're going to be eating. So intermittent fasting can be whenever you're not eating. In the old days, that was just 3 square meals a day. And then you could do 24-hour fasts. You could do OMAD as 1 meal a day. And then you can go all the way up. So let's go through this. So back in the day, back in the 70s, when the Earth was still cooling, it was a long time ago, we were told just eat 3 square meals a day. And this is what I felt like when my mom tells me I no more snacks before dinner. I mean, they used to just say, you can't have snacks. And if you look around before they started doing the frequent snacks, people were a lot thinner. So number one is, if you want to start slowly, just don't snack after dinner. That's a good start. Second, don't snack in between meals. Just do 3 meals a day. And then the next thought is maybe skip one of those meals, and maybe, for example, skip breakfast. Well, wow, you shouldn't do that, because we were told breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It must have some science to it. Oh no, it has to do with marketing. Kellogg wanted to sell his cornflakes. So look it up, fact check me. Breakfast was invented, breakfast as the most important meal of the day was invented by Kellogg to sell cereal. So that being said, one of the most powerful things I find that really is pretty seamless to do is intermittent fasting, which is a 16-8 type of thing. So you just don't eat breakfast, that you have lunch as your break fast. You, quote, break your fast at lunch. And so if you say stop, and the math always gets rough for me, but let's say you stop eating at 8 and then you don't eat till noon, that's 16 hours. So a lot of that is when you're sleeping. So that in and of a day will make a huge dent in what you're doing. And frankly, at the end of the day, no one really cares about breakfast that much. So in general, a very simple way to sort of dip your toe into the whole idea of fasting is just skip breakfast, have 2 meals a day, no snacks, and that works really well. So if I have my druthers, this is how I break my fast. You can go to In-N-Out and get what's called the Flying Dutchman. I know a lot of people don't look at this appealing, but this looks great to me. So you could call on the hidden menu, the Flying Dutchman, and it's just 2 patties with cheese in between. If you want to, you could put grilled onions, or if you really want to be cool, you could put grilled, they do have chili, grilled sort of chili. But in general, your lunch can be your break fast. Now, if you get good at just the 2 meals a day, perhaps a couple times a week, you go to 1 meal a day, which is the OMAD, 1 meal a day. And with that, you're just eating dinner. And this is a great thing. This is what I do most days of the week. And I have dinner with my pretty wife. And an interesting thing is, a lot of people say, oh, you got to eat early so you can burn off the calories and things. But that really hasn't been shown to work. What actually is a very good technique is think about eating late, a small meal, so that you can sleep. Because if you think about it, you just need enough food, I think, if you're really overweight and want to get lean and fit, you need enough food so you could fall asleep. You know, the old days was the way you sort of punish someone was you would give them the situation where you go to bed without your dinner. So it's really tough to fall asleep when you're hungry. So if you wanted to make it pretty easy, is you just keep your meal small at the end of the day so that you could just have enough so you can fall asleep. And then another version of this is called the warrior diet. This is what the Greeks, Romans, and the Spartans used to do. And again, they would have a very small eating window, not exactly 1 hour, but they'd have 2 or 3 hours. but they would all do their stuff during the day and then just eat at night. So if you're interested in that, there's a book on that. So as I said, there's a lot of different sort of intermittent fasting books that can do under an hour and do a lot, I mean, under one day and do a lot of things. Now, there is then the next level, I just arbitrarily break these up into prolonged fasting. So there's intermittent fasting and there's prolonged fasting. And essentially that's when you quote unquote go over the cliff and do more than 24 hours. And so you could do 36 hours, you could do 48, you could do 72. And there's something to this. And I would encourage you, if you're at all interested, I could give you resources for it, but there is the psychology that, the best way to make a 10-mile hike easy is to do a 20-miler, because then the 10 mile is always easier. So one way to make, say, a 36 or 48-hour fast easy is to do a 72-hour fast. So you would want to take it slow and not do that for a while until you've learned a lot. But the number one thing, if you are going to fast, is try to make sure you're drinking enough water. When you don't eat carbs or you fast, you pee away a lot of water and electrolytes. And then what happens is you can get lightheaded and dizzy. So part of that lightheaded and dizzy that people don't do well with is not getting enough hydration. So overhydrate if you can. And then the other thing is the good white powder, which is salt. So sugar is the bad white powder. Salt, as long as you don't have kidney or kidney or heart disease, then having salt is quite good. And if you want more about the salt, this is a great book, The Salt Fix. And all these books are Audible books, so your ears have more time than your eyes and you can just listen to it. But my thing is that the more salt you have, especially if you're feeling dizzy or lightheaded, will do well. And in fact, I put salt in my coffee. I don't put sugar. So salt, if you're otherwise have good heart and kidney, is amazing. A lot of us like to get a salary. Well, salary comes from the Roman word for salt. They used to pay the soldiers in salt. It was that valuable. So if you are going to fast, one thing you might consider doing is getting some of these commercial things. And there's these electrolyte packets that you can get. So they're fasting salts. This is Jason Fung's type stuff. Snake juice is, snakes don't eat that much. So one of the folks, Cole Robinson, came up with his situation where he's really into prolonged fasting, kind of like a snake that doesn't eat very often. And so he came up with what he calls snake juice, which is really electrolytes. And then a lot of people can kind of cut out their hunger by having a little bit of apple cider vinegar. So there's just a tiny bit of carbs in it, but for some people that will help them with getting through the fasting. So I want to warn you about this guy. I like him personally, but he's incredibly harsh. He says a lot of bad words. So he's kind of like a drill sergeant, but some people like him, some people hate him, but he is doing a lot for prolonged fasting. And at least I wanted to let you know that if you do not listen to him in any mixed company at all. But for the fasting, sometimes it takes some behavior as opposed to knowledge. So you want to, as you go along, if you're interested in prolonged fasting, you're gonna want to learn how to mix some of these salts. And I think that is something that I would do the day fast for a long time while you learn all this, and then slowly dip your toe into it. And then you can get into 48-hour fast. And if you really want a good program, what works well for lifelong leanness is if you're prone to being above your ideal weight, is consider only doing one meal a day, 6 days a week, and doing one 48-hour fast a week. If you do that, you will never be above your ideal weight. So those are some ideas to do. When my daughter was going to get married and we were going to do a wedding, and I don't know if you know, but those wedding pictures are forever. And so we did a quote hashtag shed to wed. And so we would do double 48s. I would eat on Sunday, not eat till Tuesday, I'd eat Wednesday, and then not eat till Friday, Saturday. And so we do double 48. So there's 1,001 different ways to mix and match this, but this is pretty fun. But if you do start to fast, the number one reason people don't want to fast is hunger. So you almost like surfing, hunger is caused by a lot of things. I mean, Pavlov's dog did it with just a bell. I mean, if you're, fasting and you walk by, some place that you like why do you think the Cinnabons is so prevalent in a mall when we used to go to a mall? That it really, a lot of things make you hungry, but hunger really is like a wave. It will, if you can learn to ride the wave, it will go away, and then you can go to the next level. And then finally, obviously, safety first. We want you to be very careful. Do not jump into doing any of these prolonged fasting. My first thing is just skip snacks, and that's a really good start. But if you are going to be going on this and you're on diabetic medicines, you really need to chat with your doctor or your healthcare provider, because the medicines are powerful. Fasting is powerful. Literally, if you don't eat, your diabetes will go away. Well, if you're on medicines, your blood sugar's down. And so you don't want to get hypoglycemia. And then the other thing, and I'll tell you my, goofy thing that I did, is you don't want to do a lot of exercise. If you think about it, if you could fast for a day and you usually eat about 2,000 calories, 2,000 calories is equal to 20 miles. So you could walk 20 miles or you could just fast for a day. That's how powerful this is. Now, if you want to be a dingbat like I was reading a book on fasting, and I was trying to run 100 miles in a week because I was going to be going to med school and I couldn't do that anymore. So I didn't realize that they were connected. And I tried to fast and try to run 100 miles in a week. And the answer is I can't do it. I got to 87 miles and I was just like shaken. So then I got to the last chapter of the book that says, do not exercise while you're fasting. So I highly recommend just doing barely anything when you're fasting. Make sure you don't fall and be very careful. So in summary, these are the two best books on fasting. If you're at all interested, I would get this book on Audible's Life in the Fasting Lane. Jason Fung is really the thought leader on this. He's got several books on it, and it's very good. And in summary, I really want you to know that sometimes timing is everything, that it's not just what you eat, it's when you eat, and it's also how much you eat. And so for next week, I'll talk about calories and how much you eat and sort of the nuance of calories. And then, as Lydia had mentioned, I really want to let you know that we, thanks to some of our great students, Christian Navarro's on this, and his sister Joyce Navarro, have helped me to start our YouTube so that we could put all these talks up on YouTube to have better access. And then we do have our Nudge Away book that is on Audible, so you're welcome to get that. It does come as paperback, and again, everything goes to the Lions Club to sort of fund all of this stuff. And then finally, I wanted to encourage you to, if you like this, tell your friends, or at least have them watch it on our YouTube. And that we'll be doing it next Wednesday Wellness. It's February the 1st. And at that time, I'll be talking mostly about calories, sort of good calories, bad calories. And with that, I will stop. Thanks for putting up with me. So with that, any questions at all?
Thank you, Dr. Hizon. That was very, very interesting. And I'm sure that with 41 members here, somebody has a question. So I'm going to shut up.
I do.
Yes, sir.
Somebody was telling me the other day something about brown fat and white fat, like the babies are born with more brown fat.
Correct.
And then
that's
if
very
you-
good. Yeah. So that is basically you have a brown fat up in the top of your back. It's a type of metabolically active fat. And interestingly, if you keep that cold, it will actually bump up your metabolism and stuff. So that's where people do a lot. And when you're younger, it's bigger, and then it starts to get smaller and smaller. So quote unquote, the adiposity or the white fat is around on the outside or the inside. We talked about that last time, but the brown fat is up in the upper back. And you can actually, some people actually put cold packs on their neck to lose weight, because if you put it up there, it will stimulate the brown fat to become metabolically active. So if you want another little ploy, if you want to burn fat along those lines, is one of the things you can do is use, because your hands are what tell you how cold you are. You know how, like, if you're cold, you put your hands underneath your elbow. So if you're driving, you want to lose weight, kind of wear the least amount you can, put gloves on, and turn on your air conditioner. Because, when they go to Everest, all these cold places, literally you have to eat sticks of butter not to lose weight. So there's a ton of different ways. That's what the whole idea about cold baths are and stuff, but that gets into that whole brown fat. Exactly. And Stacy, thank you for mentioning my white coat. I had to do interviews today. Sorry. Any other questions? Or anybody want to share success stories?
Well, like I said, I lost between 6 and 7 pounds this first week, and I've been munching while we were doing this, but I'm only eating carrots, and I actually have fasted for right now for about 28 hours.
Wow. And how do you feel? Do you feel lightheaded?
No, not really. I feel fine. Like I said, I've got some salmon to fix for dinner after this is.
Good. Lydia, do you want to share?
What do we want to share?
Did you, or I could, otherwise I can call on people. I can.
So, yeah, really quickly here, we talk about the different kind of intermittent fasting. Some people that I heard is that as soon as you finish a long fasting, they are super hungry. And what do? You know, it's very hard. And I applaud the person that has done the fasting and then is going normal. But yeah, sometimes you get really hungry after that.
Yeah, I think that's like everything. You sort of want to, in a lot of ways, plan for it. So and that's something else we can talk about also is how do you get satisfied when you eat? So the big deal is, I think you want to, the two things that you really want to have is make sure when you're going to break your fast, if it's a really, really long fast, that's totally different. And there is this big thing you might hear about is refeeding syndrome in people that do prolonged fasting, or that was the problem when people really not just fasted, were in starvation. My dad was actually in a concentration camp in the Philippines when the Japan occupation and all of that. And we all know about the German occupation and Auschwitz and those sort of things. So they had to eat very carefully when they were breaking, that sort of starvation. But for the majority of folks, probably the first time you do it, you will like overeat and then you'll get sick. And then eventually at some point you'll get sick of being sick. I think the key is to realize that the appetite and the cessation takes a little while. That's why if you look at a hot dog eating contest, do they eat it slow or fast? You got to eat it fast. You can't eat that many hot dogs slow. So if you slow down, if you eat a little bit, make yourself just eat a little bit and then give yourself some time, you'll fill up. So that's a whole nother thing. And that's where I think as you start out, you look at it. And initially, it's, sort of good to do feast and famine. But what I really like about this, if you guys could learn and gals can learn fasting, now you can have a life. You can go on a cruise, you can go on a feast, you can have a wedding and recover from it. Right now, no one can recover from stuff. They just keep putting on weight. So with fasting, your world's your oyster. You literally can feast and fast. Life is good. And you feel like you have lifelong way to control your life. If you don't mind, I want to call on our new member of our team, Sahil. Can you introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sahil. I'm just joining. I'm looking forward to working a little bit more with everyone. I personally have been trying to lose weight as well. And so I've just been skipping lunch. That's been my main thing.
Tell them your pedigree and where are you now?
So I graduated from Berkeley with a degree in economics. I did my master's at Brown. I'm currently in Connecticut, in New Haven. And
you're applying to what?
I'm currently applying to medical school, correct? Yeah.
And so we just met. His dad's a psychiatrist, and he actually does quite a bit about depression. So he's very interested in this, and we're excited that he would help us to get some of this research and make it a resource. So appreciate you being here. Anybody else want to share? Gail?
I'm unmuted now. So yes, so I started this journey last February 7th, and I've lost almost 40 pounds. I've got diabetes and all those wonderful things. But over Christmas, of course, probably like many of you, I really overate, ate cookies and did things that I was not doing at all. In fact, I've slowly just been losing weight for this whole year and I never gained any. It was really great. And so I actually just was talking to Dr. Hezon, and the obesity code from Jason Fung. I just actually read that over again today, the book, and it really is good because at the back it talks all about fasting. So everything you said today was just amazing. And I really just need to get back to the fasting, because when I was fasting, I felt great. I was losing weight. And then even, I think if I can encourage you guys, when you come out of your fasting, to, like he said, really plan what you're going to eat, because you don't want to just say, okay, I'm really hungry, I'm going to eat all this stuff. And I think for me, having a good salad and maybe even some nuts or something and kind of just start slow, I felt a lot better than just pigging out, because I did do that a few times. And so I would encourage you, the whole fasting thing really, really helps. And I feel like it, for me, my blood sugar goes down. I'm a little carbaholic, which he kind of titled me the other day. And so carbs, man, for some reason, just go right on me. I can feel it in my clothes instantly. So the fasting is the best way for me. And then it's almost like you get a fresh start, because you're like, now when you want to feed your body, you want it to be healthy, you want it to be good things, you know, low or no carbs. And so anyway, I'm having a fresh start right now, like everybody else.
Would you mind telling them how we first met a year ago and what maybe your numbers were? Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. I had just been diagnosed type 2 diabetes. I believe my A1C was 8.9. And I had been kind of pre-diabetic for a while. But then all of a sudden that shot up. I was about 180 pounds. And my blood pressure was high, and the whole thing. And so when I met with the doctor, also my knee was hurt. So a friend of mine actually referred me to him for my knee, which I had hurt. So we started with that, and then he asked me what my weight was when he was talking about my knee. And then he said, we're going to be talking about this other stuff in just a minute. So then he talked to me about my knee and what I needed to do to get that back in shape, which was to get a bike. I did everything he said. I got a bike. I rode the bike. I got the diabetes book, Nudging Diabetes Away. I have it filled out and went through that, learned so much. And essentially, my body pretty much started to heal itself as I lost weight, as I cut down my carbs, as I did all the things that were on here. And it was interesting because he told me, he says, it's going to take you about a year to kind of figure this whole thing out. And a year is coming up here pretty soon. And I don't have a handle on it all, but I have probably read probably 7 or 8 of the books that he recommended, because as I would hit a plateau or I would feel like I was failing, he'd say, you know what, I think maybe you just need to read this and do that. And I did the PE diet, you know, and so I've read all those about fasting and the right way to eat. So anyway, so I have succeeded, but over Christmas I really blew it, but it's okay, because you know what, I'm learning. I learned that was really stupid. And I felt terrible. So I feel so much better already. I'm fasting right now.
And then did you share what you have in your backyard now?
Oh, yeah. The one that we just did for our grandkids. Yes, we've been building, we built a zip line. We have 7 grandkids, and from ages like 3 to 11, and we have property. And so we thought this year we're not buying gifts, we're going to put in a zip line. So we put in a big zip line for our grandkids and for us and all the adults. So that's been really fun. So you like that, huh?
But yeah, I do. I just think that's fantastic. Good stuff.
But my knee, by the way, it'll be a year now, and it's great. It's probably 98% great.
Don't talk to her.
Don't say that. So anyway.
All right, good. Thank you very much, Gail. Appreciate it. And then she actually, you know, has been up and down, but that's just the whole idea about all this. Anybody else?
Hey, Dr. Hezon, how you doing? Fred Wilton here.
Oh, hi.
I did labs on a routine checkup for my birthday, and I got pre-diabetes for my birthday last year. Yay! So to celebrate, I cut carbs and I lost 45 pounds since May of last year.
Wow.
I just got my labs back, by the way, and all of my elevated labs in cholesterol and everything like that, they're all in normal range right now.
Good.
So I went from holy crap, kid, you better watch what the hell you're doing, to I'm now in normal range, and carbs were the biggest deal. Although I still eat carbs, it's just hey, I'll have a bite or two of macaroni and cheese instead of a pile of it, you know, and all that kind of stuff, and taking walks. And one of the things that really makes it easy for me is my wife is fantastic, and she's joining me with it. You know, we cook at home, and that's been a godsend. It really has helped quite a bit.
Have people noticed your weight loss?
Yes. And they say, hey, you look like you lost weight. I'm like,
And then what's behind you?
drum set. I'm a musician as well. I play drums and bass and banjo and all that kind of stuff. So
Can you play a sad song on a banjo?
you know, I've got rotator cuff surgery, so I can't at the moment.
No, I'm just kidding. That's a
Maybe-
Steve Martin thing. You can't play a sad song on a banjo. Everything's
Yes, you can. You can absolutely tune it to
Okay.
a minor key.
Oh, okay.
But
Sorry.
when you tune it in G major, no, you can't. He's
Okay.
correct about that.
All right, sorry.
There is a message from Jennifer on the chat. Can you see that?
Yes.
It says, okay.
Yeah, that's, well, the thought is on the flip side that Alzheimer's, she has a thing about amyloid plaques and tangles. And so amyloid plaque in the brain is helped even prevented with fasting. So, they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because the sugar is so irritated and inflammatory. And that actually, that one of the best things you can do for your brain is the whole idea of fasting. So again, that's why I do it during the day when I'm seeing patients. But prolonged fasting is quite good. And the whole idea, if you're at all interested in the brain, there's one called the Charlie Foundation, where the fat burning diet is actually what we use to treat our concussed football players, and also with multiple other things, even like Parkinson's. So all of the diseases are helped if you improve lifestyle. And I think everyone needs to find it, but it is very exciting, the role of fasting with chronic disease. That's why I bring it up. It's pretty weird. Did anyone learn anything tonight that they didn't know and want to share that at all?
This is Tom, one of your patients, and I'm constantly learning things here because I'm on a journey. But going back a couple of years ago, a friend of mine came out to visit, and I was looking at him and I'm thinking, wow, he really put a lot of weight on. He's looking terrible. And then we had our picture taken together, and I looked at the picture. I said, holy cow, I'm bigger than he is.
Wow.
It was kind of an eye opener for me. So I've been on a journey like the past 2 years to bring my weight down and get in better shape. Because I said, when I look in the mirror, I said, wow, who is that guy? And he's got that body I was never going to have. And so I started off by eliminating the white things, the rice, the potatoes, and so forth, the white bread. And that works a little bit, but not enough. And then I'd start playing around with cutting back how much I eat or how many meals I would eat, and that would help. But what I found really helped was if I fast for at least 36 hours, and once I went up to 64 hours. And what I find too when I fast is the fact that I'm not as hungry. Initially I'm hungry, but then it goes away. What I also found when I fast is every time I walk past the refrigerator, when I'm not fasting, I want to open the door and see what's in there. When I'm fasting, I don't touch the handle. I keep walking. And so I think that helps. But I haven't been on a very fast journey. I'm trying to pick up the pace a little bit now, especially as the holidays are over. And I'm down about 20 pounds.
Good.
And I thought that was going to be good, but I need to get down now at least 20 more pounds. I can see that. And so that'll be my goal. And the way I'll get there is to fast and then try to work on the 1 meal a day program. I think once I get there, I'll be able to stabilize with some routine. I'm not sure what that is yet, but I just need to get the rest of the journey in, get to my next level down, and then stabilize and see where I'm at.
Yeah, I might bring up a kind of super controversial idea, but I'm, about a lot of people sort of have different feelings about should you weigh every day, should you weigh once a week, that kind of stuff, should you never weigh. I'll be frank, what I've found taking care of thousands of patients is the more they measure, the better they do. I've yet to see someone above their ideal weight that measures stuff. And if I have 3 things, and you guys are all that are my patients are welcome to send it to me. If you weigh yourself and you count your carbs and your calories and you send that to me every day for 2 weeks, you will lose unbelievable amounts of weight, only because it keeps you accountable and you self-regulate. So like if you know that you're going to weigh tomorrow, it's all a behavior thing. So you all, having those of you that stayed awake through the whole talk, have the knowledge. Now it's how do you put the knowledge into behavior? So that's where I'm hoping this sort of, for lack of a better phrase, Carbohydrates Anonymous program, that we all support each other. You get ideas from other people, but at the end of the day, it's your own journey. It's like what works for you. And we just want to be very supportive of that. But I mean, you guys are all amazing. You inspire me. So that's why we do this. Anybody else have anything they want to say?
Yeah. What about coffee?
Good question.
And fasting?
Again, there's some purists that say no, but the majority of people, and I just go by what Jason Fung says, he's a yes. So I actually have a sweatshirt that says coffee saves lives, because I think it does. But interestingly, I put salt in my coffee, and I put sodium chloride and potassium chloride. So tea and coffee are very sort of satisfying, and at least it's something you can drink during the day. And then again, I put salt in my coffee. I'll be frank, I've never heard anyone doing that, but it makes sense because you could do a salty bone broth or those sorts of things. So my theory is, as long as I'm not taking in calories or very much calories, that I think coffee is okay. Along those lines, they don't recommend chewing gum or anything with artificial sweeteners, because that still stimulates insulin. So that's the deal. Have you ever seen anyone get thin on Diet Coke? You can see everyone there's a whole thing in the media of going away from diet this or diet that, because it just really hasn't worked. So artificial sweeteners are literally like, again, in my little world, methadone for sugar addicts. It keeps you sugar sort of wanting. And what I think you want to do is switch from sweet to savory, so that just one raspberry literally is too sweet. It's like sucking on syrup. So think about, just if you can measure, do any of those things, just weigh yourself every day and write it somewhere or put it in your phone or something, and see what the power of that does, and maybe report back in a couple of weeks on that.
Okay. As far as the coffee goes, we don't do sugar, my wife and I, but we do cream. Is that okay? Typically lately it's been heavy cream.
Right. I mean, my opinion is try it, see how you do with it, and then see how you do without it. So if you put the heavy cream, so instead of having half and half or milk, because milk is mostly sugar, you would put full fat cream. That's what you're putting in, probably.
Yeah, that's
so full fat cream. So that is very good. But in the purists, they would say no. But I'm like, do it. See how you do. If you're losing weight and you're feeling good, go for it. It's totally fine. On the other side of that, some people are doing what they call bulletproof coffee, where they're putting fat in the coffee. They're using quite a bit. And that's really like a meal replacement. It actually came from a guy who discovered it up in the Himalayas, that the Sherpas would put yak butter, which I'd love to taste yak butter someday. That's one of my bucket lists. Tim, could you get on that, Tim, and get me some yak butter? But in general, I think I would do the full fat cream. Less is more. Figure out what's the least you could do, but go for it. And then if you could, report back to us.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to acknowledge some of the lions that we have online here today. We have First District Governor Lily Harris from District L3 that joined us as well. And we have Irene, which is diabetes chair, also from L3, and many other Lions that they are listening to this. And the funny thing is that some of them and some of you are thin. And you would say, well, why do I need to be on this or that, you know? But, and I'm going to let, Jerry is already laughing here, you know, but I would like him to say the final words to the thin outside and fat inside, or how that goes. I couldn't remember exactly. But yeah, so it is good that you're here.
Yes, thank you. I think thank you for coming. The Lions, it's very, very excited. And Sahil, this is what I kind of wanted to introduce you to, that, you know, we're trying to make the research into a resource, but the Lions have really backed us in terms of doing these sorts of things. And what I'm hoping to do is give other physicians tools to treat, because diabetes is actually 1/4 of the healthcare dollars. It's the gateway drug of medicine. It's the gateway disease. And so Lions have really done an ambitious job. And what we're hoping to do is actually come out with a newsletter. So the two things we want to do this year, since, you know, COVID continues to stay around, and, you know, COVID likes carbs. So, and unfortunately, the majority of the deaths have been in diabetics that are uncontrolled. So that's another reason to do this. But the big thing is that I think a lot of the folks like us on this meeting maybe are not the most tech savvy. So if we could come up with a newsletter that went out on a regular basis, maybe in between these sort of meetups, that's another way to support them. So we did a study on that, and it looks like it's beneficial. The med school at UCR is going to back us on a program like that. And that's the thing that we can combine with the Lions, even though I am in Lions, that this could really help us. And then we can get the other providers help to treat diabetes this way. So thank you very much, Lions. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Do the Lions want to say anything? Any of the Lions?
Well, we have Alan, Andy, and a bunch of people from District L3. I don't want to put anybody.
Well, we gotta ask Rocco. Rock, can you say something?
Rocky.
Well, can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, well, I am not diabetic at all, but my wife has been diabetic for 26 years. So I am here to learn how to help her, I guess, survive happily. But we have a guest that is my guest for the past year or so. I want Luban from Virginia to say hi. Is she still there, Luban?
Yeah, she is. She's on mute. Luban, you're in mute. Mute.
Luban. Anyhow, okay, well.
Saying hi.
Unmute.
No? Okay, so that's the reason why I attend. And I'm sure when you said a few Lions, we are non-diabetic, but knowledge is power. I want to be a powerful person.
Correct. Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So he's up in Los Angeles, and they were very nice to invite me there. And I really appreciate that welcome. That was great.
Thank you. How about Delia? Delia, what do you have to say?
Hello, Roque. How are you? How everybody? Dr. Hyson, Lydia. I'm so happy to see you again after a few months. I was away, but well, also I don't have diabetes, but I think it's I learned through the Lions. I learned how bad is the diabetes hitting the population. So since as Lions, we look to help others, I think learning is a good way to do it. I was thinking a few things that Dr. Hyson said about putting salt in the coffee, because I've been trying to drink my coffee without any sugar, and it's been hard. So maybe I will take this tip and let you know next time.
Good.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hyson, for excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Lydia, for your effort making this true. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, well, it is already 8:01. If nobody else have any other burning questions, we
got
can.
one question.
Yeah, who is that?
Robert Fowler from Columbia, Connecticut.
Oh,
Hey, Robert, how are you
we
doing?
have two people from Connecticut.
Better, could be worse. I got one question. Aren't you afraid of going on fasting that your sugar count will get too low?
Yes, absolutely. So that's why I recommend you dip your toe in it, check your blood sugars. But if you're thinking about doing this, again, talk with your doctor. But in general, we de-prescribe medicine. I'd rather people run a little high as they learn this, because if you take your medicine, it's going to lower your blood sugar. If you fast, it's going to lower your blood sugar. And then 1 + 1 could equal 3 in a bad way. So you're right. That's the big thing, safety first. So start it low, go slow, but it's very, very powerful and it can replace your medicine, but you have to do it carefully. You're exactly right.
Yeah, I eat very small meals, and every once in a while, yeah, I'll have a snack, but very small. But I still have to watch very closely of getting my sugar down too low. So I'm just kind of wondering about that.
Yeah, we'll talk to your doctor about decreasing your meds if you're going to do that, because that's what we do, and we literally de-prescribe. So, and that's a thing that a lot of doctors, we just haven't been able to do. We've never done that before. So I have to teach people how to de-prescribe as to prescribe.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, well,
Joe.
Oh, okay. Next meeting is February 1st. Hope to see you back.
No, it's February 2nd.
Oh, February 2nd. Okay, February 2nd.
Groundhog's Day. It'll be over and over again.
Okay. Okay, then we'll see you next time in February. Come back. We have always a very interesting topics and to help others. All right.
And then if anyone has any questions and stuff, let me know, because I'm open to any feedback. Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep pounding through. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good night.